Something lurks in the lands between. Something small, something round, something shiny and golden, something offered up so freely and yet lost so easily. Something that seems like a blessing, but might actually be a curse. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm a human Justicar, and if you're new here, I make lore and theory videos on video games. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more from me. Today we'll be taking another look at the lore in the lands between. As always, there will be spoilers in today's video, so please proceed at your own risk. This tiny golden aura is the grace of the Erdtree. This light once shone in the eyes of your tarnished brethren, but now it is all that guides you. The description of a rune says that it is grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the lands between, true vestiges of gold. We are given grace at the beginning of the game, long after the shattering of the Elden Ring and the following wars that waged across the lands between. This isn't the first time either, as implied by the memory of grace. First grace, which once guided bygone tarnish to the lands between. It is merely a cycle. The two fingers in the round table hold tell us the tragic corruption of the order has taken its toll. But the greater will has not abandoned the realm, nor the life that inhabits it. So it is that the tarnished are guided by grace, called to act. There are also these golden rays of light that point us in the direction towards the Elden Ring. This is called the guidance of grace. Some of the other tarnished we meet throughout the game tell us that they can no longer see it. After defeating Margit the Fell Omen, Rogier asks us, "You can see it then, I take it. The guidance of grace? Enjoy it while you can. I'm tarnished like you, but unlike you, I've seen neither hide nor hair of this guidance for the longest time." Blackguard Big Boggart tells you the same. You're tarnished too. Can you see it then? The guidance of grace, I mean. I can't see it at all no more. We can make the assumption that this means they are no longer blessed with the grace of the Erdtree. When grace is lost or taken away, that person can no longer see the golden rays that are meant to guide us. This could be explained by their actions or lack thereof. By straying further and further away from the path of the Elden Ring and becoming the Elden Lord. We also know that the guidance of grace contains some kind of order to it. A grace mimic is an item the player can use to create a fake guidance of grace. The description reads, "Similar to grace, this fetish draws rays guiding the way, only without any sense of order." Marika's words to Godfrey before the long march mentions this light. "My lord and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between." In the game, we, the tarnished, are those very warriors whom Queen Marika divested of their grace, the light that once shone in our eyes. There are golden runes scattered all throughout the lands between, some even in places that the Greater Will tried burying. In the Eternal City of Noxtella, for example, we can find golden runes level 10, which state that the grace of gold blessed those who were first to serve it with the most vivid coloration. Now let's take a closer look at these runes, these tiny bits of grace that were taken away. The image sort of looks like a dull golden iris, and the higher the quantity of runes, the clearer that image becomes, until finally, it is undeniably an eye. The description of the Lord's rune says, "Runes of one who was destined to become a lord." But when the Elden Ring was shattered, all that remained was a distant duty. It's unmistakable that this is the image of someone's eye. And then there are these glowing skulls strewn about the lands between that still contain runes that we can collect. The reason that we know these skulls still contain runes and not these is because of the yellow glowing light that shines from the eye sockets. I believe this means that runes, or the grace of the Erdtree, are literally stored within our eyes. This is not just limited to the tarnished either, considering the fact that we've only recently been granted our grace again. This isn't a theory that I came up with on my own, as I have seen it talked about in some Reddit threads as well as on the wiki page, but it's definitely an idea I've thought about for a really long time and never really got around to fully exploring. So who really bestows grace? The answer is slightly more complicated than I had previously thought. I agree with a lot of the points in Clyde the Camel's post on the Elden Ring Reddit page. There they went into full detail regarding this very same question. Queen Marika's words imply that she is the one to give and take away grace. I divest each of thee of thy grace. Then after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed. But the two fingers told us the greater will has not abandoned the realm, so it is that the tarnished are guided by grace. This instead implies that the greater will is the one who is restoring our grace and calling us back to the lands between. Enya tells us that Queen Marika is the vessel of the Elden Ring, carrier of its vision, not her own. Grace also isn't restored until long after the Shattering War, when the Greater Will had finally abandoned the demigods. The Greater Will has long renounced the demigods. Tarnished, show no mercy. Take all they have left. This is why grace was returned to the Tarnished. So it is pretty clear to me that grace is, and always has been, another extension of the Greater Will's influence, not Queen Marika's. It is the one way that it can intervene in the lands between. In this video, I'm theorizing 3 major points. Grace is stored in the eyes, that it is the Greater Will who bestows and takes grace away, not Queen Marika, and that it is not as much of a blessing as the game would lead us to believe. First, let's talk about what kind of implications grace being in the eyes could have on the inhabitants of the lands between, including those within the Golden Order. Starting with Queen Marika. Queen Marika is the Empyrean who was chosen and ascended to godhood. She created the Golden Order, or the set of laws in which she'd ruled over the lands between. Queen Marika made a lot of changes and waged multiple wars against the many different inhabitants, spreading the influence of the Golden Order and the Erdtree. The Erdtree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the Order, or divest thyself of it. She even plucked out a part of the Elden Ring itself, destined death, changing the very nature of it. And yet, her godhood was no longer the gift she thought it was. Marika's scar seal states, these seals represent the lifelong duty of those chosen by the gods. But her sword seal says, solemn duty weighs upon the one beholden, not unlike a gnawing curse from which there is no deliverance. Take a look at what these items are. Their eyes. An eye engraved with an Elden rune, eyeballs with golden irises, and an Elden rune branded where the pupils should be. I have seen others speculate that these could be the eyes of her followers, but I believe that these are in fact Queen Marika's actual eyes. One of the reasons why is because we also find Radagon's scar and sword seal. The fact that they both have these pairs makes sense if they're both missing their eyes, which seems to be the case if we take a closer look at their models. Special thanks to BonFireVN for having these images available for us to look at. Radagon's eyes are in fact missing. My guess is the same is true for Queen Marika based on these images of her during Ronnie's ending. So either they were removed by choice or forcibly taken from them. At this point, we've come to the conclusion that runes are stored in the eyes, that the grace of the Erdtree lies within these runes, and that it can be taken away. But when Queen Marika says the line, "with thine eyes dimmed," she's referring to the golden light being removed, not their actual eyes being gouged out. So why are she and Radagon both missing their eyes? If we look at Queen Marika's shadow, Malekith the Black Blade, underneath that helm he is also missing his eyes. Geraint, Malekith's alter ego, gives us the beast eye, which is a claw-marked stone eye. The murky violet iris writhes as if alive. Because the beast eye trembles whenever you're near Deathroot, a lot of people have pondered over whether or not this is Malekith's actual eye. If it is, where is the other one? I know some may not agree with this idea since the eye is made of stone, but I mentioned in my last Empyrean video that Blythe was tailored for his Empyrean, which suggests that shadows are somehow altered. This wording gives them an almost artificial feel, and if Blythe was tailored, perhaps Malekith was as well, which could explain him having stone eyes. Malekith is not the only beast we meet with the same eyeless design. Sorosh, another member of the Golden Order, and the beast regent who is mounted onto Godfrey's back, is also blind. Visually, Sorosh's eyes are clamped shut with a large scar running through them. They could have been removed just like the others, rendering Sorosh sightless. There's also the finger reader crones, including Enya, who are all missing their eyes. This isn't the case for Dragon Lord Placidusax though, who still retains his, though he is missing a few of his heads, which means this isn't some kind of ancient practice amongst those previous followers of the Greater Will. Blindness is a theme that we see in many different examples across the lands between, not just in the Golden Order. The first examples are the Thorn Sorcerers, or the Guilty. The Guilty, with their eyes gouged by thorns, lived in eternal darkness, and the Guilty may have a connection to the Golden Order through Radagon. I've discussed Thorn Sorcerers before in my Radagon Secret Sorcery video, so if you're interested, check it out after this one. The second most obvious example is that of Shabriri and the Frenzied Flame. It is said that the man named Shabriri had his eyes gouged out as punishment for the crime of slander, and with time, the blight of the Flame of Frenzy came to dwell in the empty sockets. Throughout the Frenzy Flame questline, you're guiding a blind maiden named Hyetta by feeding her Shabriri grapes, which are yellow oozing eyeballs of those who succumb to the madness of the Frenzied Flame. Madness grows inside of the eyes, as confirmed by the yellow ember, an ember taken from an eye socket of a corpse, a sign that the deceased suffered from the Flame of Frenzy. So just like the Golden Order bestows grace upon its followers in the form of runes, the Frenzied Flame inflicts madness, and both of these inhabit a person's eyes. Could this mean that other outer gods' influences also dwell inside the eyes of their followers? Or is this something unique to both the Frenzied Flame and the Greater Will? This doesn't exactly explain why Marika's and Radagon's eyes are missing. In Shabriri's case, as well as the Thorn Sorcerers, it was a part of their punishment. But in Queen Marika's case, her punishment was her imprisonment inside the Erdtree. I'm not convinced by this explanation. However, if it was punishment, then there is another whom the Greater Will wishes to punish even more than Queen Marika, and should also bear this mark. the Empyrean who was chosen by the Greater Will but ultimately rejected it, Ronnie the Witch. Ronnie's trademark look is her doll body and her spirit merging into one at an eye that is closed. The eye closely resembles Melina's and has led to a lot of speculation regarding the two of them being connected. Melina's mysterious eye does actually open though, during the Lord of the Frenzied Flame ending. Zuli the Witch, however, made a video where they looked at her model and confirmed that the eye socket is in fact empty. Ronnie's shadow Blythe, unlike Marika's, still retains both of his eyes, although it does appear like one is halfway closed. There is something interesting, however, that happens during the tail end of her questline. When you first enter the Ansel River through Rena's Rise, you can find and pick up Ronnie's doll in a nearby coffin. Speaking to the doll 3 times at the site of grace triggers her dialogue where she reveals her soul inhabits the doll. It's then that she explains that she's an Empyrean, and she tells us about the 2 fingers' baleful shadows, the assassins they've been sending after her since the day she committed treason. Right before finding the Lake of Rot, you're then invaded by a baleful shadow. What's interesting is that if you do not speak to the doll and don't discover that Ronnie's soul is in it, the baleful shadow doesn't invade you. You can proceed to the Lake of Rot without any qualms. The baleful shadows previously attempted to attack Ronnie at the 3 sisters. We know this because we find one of their masks. The Black Wolf mask is a relic of an assassin who assumed the guise of Ronnie the Witch's loyal shadow. It's found behind Seluvis's rise. But Ronnie the Witch's body wasn't at the 3 sisters. It was hidden underground. The reason the baleful shadow attacked the 3 sisters is probably linked to Blythe's connection to the Greater Will. As a shadow, he was tailored to fit Ronnie's particular needs, but E.G. reveals that it was also to retain some level of control over her. With Blythe remaining ever loyal at her side, the Greater Will still has this last remaining connection to Ronnie. That could explain why we find the mask at the 3 sisters and not Ronnie's divine tower. So then, why does the baleful shadow attack us in the Ansel River now? This is just a theory, of course, but please allow me to speculate. We speak to Ronnie at a site of grace, which could imply that the Greater Will and the 2 fingers know whoever visits them. But I suspect it's something maybe a little more sinister. What if there was a consequence to grace dwelling within our eyes? What if the Greater Will can see through them? What if whatever we see, it sees, and whatever we know, it knows? Ronnie hesitates to reveal herself, refusing to speak to us until we try a 3rd time. Perhaps she knows once we discover she's in the doll we carry, the Greater Will and her 2 fingers will also know. In return for being granted the grace of the Erdtree, we in turn become an unsuspecting informant to the Greater Will and the 2 fingers. That's why the baleful shadow doesn't appear if we don't discover her true form. It's just a theory, but we have other examples of outer gods inhabiting their followers, like the fire giant. Could it be that our eyes are the true connection between outer gods and this realm? And take a look at those who've committed treason against the 2 fingers and the Greater Will. The Night Maiden's twin crown was worn by the Night Maidens of the Eternal City, indicates the highest clerical rank, and hides the eyes with silk. The Nox Swordstress also wears a helm that has silk that covers their eyes. These women are the personal guards of the Night Maidens, and the silk hides their eyes. Long ago, the Nox invoked the ire of the Greater Will, and were banished deep underground. Why else would they hide their eyes if not to prevent the Greater Will's influence and intervention? Master E.G. is another great example. He wears a mirror helm, not because it's a good piece of armor. On the contrary, it's described as easily broken and weak against striking attacks. It says it's worn by those committed to high treason. It wards off the intervention of the greater will and its vassal fingers. The Nox wore mirror helms too, so it seems that the enemies of the greater will know that its influence affects the eyes. If my theory is correct, then the mirror helm suggests that the wearer not only wishes to protect themselves, but also to remain unknown while in the presence of those who possess the Erdtree's grace. We, the Tarnished, do not see EG's face. We only see ourselves reflected back in his helm. EG was afraid, terrified of his own treachery. This could explain why Queen Marika's eyes were removed. It's possible that before she could shatter the Elden Ring, she first needed to remove the influence the greater will had over her, blocking its intervention by removing her own eyes. Removing what once was thought to be a blessing, but now had become a gnawing curse from which there is no deliverance. It's not a perfect theory since it doesn't explain everything, but it is interesting to speculate nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like it down below. Let me know in the comments your thoughts and theories on this particular topic. I'm really excited to be making long-form Elden Ring content again and am debating live streaming the DLC when it drops. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in that. Also, on my community tab or in the comments, let me know some of the topics you'd like to hear me discuss, as I will be making more Elden Ring content in anticipation to the drop. As always, I can't wait to talk to you all on the next one. Bye!